I'm delighted to introduce powerhouse Stacey Abrams. Some of Abrams' highlights include serving 11 years in the Georgia House and 7 as a Democratic leader, making history as the first Black woman to become a candidate for governor for a major party and winning more votes than any other Democrat in Georgia state history. I had the wonderful opportunity to meet her when she spoke to my Intro to American Politics class at the beginning of her campaign for governor. Her authenticity and commitment to a better Georgia inspired me to join her fight as a canvasser. In 2018, she launched Fair Fight to ensure every American has a voice in our election system. She has captivated Americans all over the country through her undeniable leadership. Without further ado, I welcome Stacey Abrams.
Stacey, do you mind unmuting?
I am. Can you guys hear me now?
There we go. We can hear you.
I apologize. You may have to do that again. My computer's doing something weird these days where it just mutes me without asking. I guess it's tired of me. But I wanted to say thank you to Lauren for such a kind introduction. Thank you, Sarah. And of course, thank you to Ignite for having me. We are in an unprecedented moment in our politics where we are being governed by those who seem to not actually believe in democracy. We have heard the president say as recently as yesterday that it is dangerous for us to vote by absentee ballot, despite the fact that he and a number of members of his cabinet recently did so. And what they mean is it's dangerous for Republicans for people to vote to use absentee ballots. But what we know is that our responsibility is not partisanship, it's peopleship. It's ensuring that people have access to the power they need to make the decisions that will govern their lives, especially for the next 4 years. And in this 2020 election cycle, what we are seeing happening at the primary level is simply a preview of what will happen on the federal level if we do not fix this soon. The legislation that's been proposed is legislation that is critical not only to responding to natural disasters, but it's legislation that's necessary for right-sizing and essentially restoring our democracy. I am, of course, known for having a little bit of a brush with voter suppression in 2018, and we did so despite having anticipated most of the vagaries of voter suppression. And here's how we have to think about it. Voter suppression consists of 3 things. Can you register and stay on the rolls? Can you get access to a ballot, and does your ballot count? Registration and staying on the rolls is a key component. In fact, it is the predicate for being able to participate in a democracy. In the United States, we are one of the few countries that are democratized and industrialized that puts it on the behest of the voters to get on the rolls. In almost every other nation, it is an automatic thing because they understand that democracy doesn't work if voters aren't included. But since we have a country that requires active behavior by the voter to be put on the rolls, with the exception of those states that have moved to automatic registration, we have to ensure that in the midst of a pandemic, we do not find people who are thrown off of the rolls without the ability to get back on, and those who are new to voting, either because they have moved, because they've just turned 18, because they've just been naturalized, those folks need to be able to access their right to vote. We also face the issue of voter purging, where people are thrown off of the rolls. There are 9 states that specifically provide for purging voters, but there are 44 states that behave in using the practice. And that means that in the midst of a pandemic, you can be taken off of the rolls without the ability to get back on, because a number of those states do not allow for online registration or for same-day registration. And so what we have to think about is how do we make sure that voters can get on the rolls and stay on the rolls? But the second is the issue, can they access the ballot? And what we saw play out in Wisconsin yesterday is a perfect example of that challenge. Right now, it is not safe to vote in person. The CDC has said this, elections experts have said this, common sense says this. When you have a crowded space where people cannot socially distance, then you do not have a safe space. And the refusal to allow for the practice of absentee ballots in a practical and safe way is basically putting people's lives and their safety at risk. What we know played out in Wisconsin is a preview of what's going to happen across the country. Because what the governor attempted to do was make it safe for voters to use absentee ballots. He first tried to make certain that they could extend the time for returning them. And when that was denied, he tried to make sure he could extend the time for the election itself. Unfortunately, both of those things were thwarted, although the Supreme Court did do one good thing in the midst of their terrible decision on Wisconsin, and that was say that absentee ballots simply had to be postmarked by Election Day, as opposed to returned by Election Day, which is what has been required in a number of states, including Wisconsin, Arizona, and others. What we need is an absentee ballot, a vote-by-mail strategy that looks at the reality of people's lives. In Georgia, for example, yes, you can get an absentee ballot, but you have to pay for the stamp to return it. First, you have to pay for the application. You have to request the application, pay for the stamp to return the application, get the ballot, and pay for a new stamp to return the ballot. When it's dangerous or impossible to get to a grocery store or a post office to get that stamp, then you do not have the right to vote unless you go in person. And there are a lot of communities across the country that simply do not have the resources to take advantage of the right to vote by mail. And so we need federal legislation, which has been proposed, that finances the actual process of getting and returning those ballots. The next thing, of course, as I mentioned, is making sure that the postmark can be a postmark decision as opposed to it having to be received by a certain day. What's happened in Wisconsin is also going to happen in Arizona. Arizona is one of the states that has a law that says that you have to actually return your ballot by the election day, not have it postmarked. That has a specific effect on Latino and especially Native American communities where they have irregular postal routes. And in fact, the Secretary of State, a Democrat, is so sad about this. She has had to warn people that they have to think about doing it 7 to 10 days ahead of time, because in those areas, and especially the most rural areas of Arizona, their mail can be routed through New Mexico or Utah before it comes back to Arizona. And the voters have no control over when their ballots arrive. We know that in Wisconsin, the other challenge is a challenge that we saw play out in Florida and in Georgia in 2018, which is that applications for absentee ballots never arrive. That those ballots, although you followed every part of the rule, the ballots never get to you. And so we know in Wisconsin, this is a challenge. We know in Arizona and in Florida, had a disproportionate number of people, young people and Democrats, who did not receive their requested ballots. And so we need to have federal law that mandates that the states do their part. Third, it's making sure those votes get counted. Actually, before I do that, I'll say the other part of this. The other part of making sure you have access to the ballot is that we also have to remember that the safest way to vote is to minimize the number of people who have to go in person to a polling place. Now, there are communities that are absolutely going to need polling places to be opened. If you are disabled, there are often only machines in polling places that you can use to cast your vote. If you have language barriers, you need to be able to go in and get help from a licensed poll worker. If you are homeless or housing insecure, and we have a lot of folks who, despite the best efforts, are being evicted from their homes or being foreclosed on, do not have secure housing, they will not receive absentee ballots. They need to be able to go and vote in person. And for every person who is denied the right to vote because their ballots don't arrive in time, they also need to be able to go and vote in person. But if we think about it like a sieve or a filter, we want to use absentee ballots, vote by mail, to filter out as many people as possible so that we're left with the smallest number of people who still have to go and vote in person. That is not only safe, it's accessible, and it's smart. And then our third challenge is, of course, making sure those ballots get counted. As I mentioned, if ballots aren't postmarked in a number of states, if ballots aren't received in a number of states, they will not be counted. And unfortunately, it is the battleground states across the country that have the highest rejection rates of absentee ballots. What they use sometimes is what's called a signature mismatch. So let's say you make it through all of the gauntlets. You get your ballot in, it gets counted, or at least it gets received. A signature mismatch is this junk science notion that someone who has never trained in forensic sciences can look at your signature and tell if it's the right one. Because essentially they're comparing it to the last signature they had from you. For a lot of folks is when they filled out their initial voter registration application or their driver's license. We know that according to forensic science, your signature can change based on the implement that you use, whether you're using a pen, a pencil, or a stylus, that it can change based on your mood. It can certainly change based on your age, and it can change based on the type of paper you're writing on. Well, what we know and what I know is that my signature changes from Kroger to CVS. but my right to democracy should not be based on whether someone watched forensic files the night before and can adjudicate whether my signature is correct or not. And so one of the important pieces of this legislation is that it removes the ability of people's votes being discarded because their signatures don't match. If we can fix the postmark issue, if we can fix the signature mismatch issue, we can then make certain that as many people as possible make it through. Fundamentally, this election is about the future of America. We are focusing very heavily on the federal elections, on who becomes president, but what we have to remember from the last decade is that every level of government matters. That's why these primaries matter so much, because often we make decisions about our local elections in our primaries, about our judges. The nature of our democracy depends on us paying attention at every level in every election. We are, through Fair Fight, making certain that we use the primary elections to test out the kind of perfidy we expect to see from Republicans. Because while elections aren't partisan, we do know that it has been one party that for the last 20 years has made it as difficult as possible for voters to use their rights to vote. In fact, we heard the president say it out loud, that if everyone had the right to vote who was eligible, that he couldn't win and the Republicans couldn't win. I actually disagree. We have places where Republicans will win if their names are on the ballot, and that's how it should be if that's what the voters choose. But the voters should have a choice, and that choice is denied when people aren't given the right to access a safe and effective voting process. I believe in this law, and I need everyone on this call to understand that we can make it so. The president has already put forward another COVID response package. He asked for $250 billion, but he specifically doesn't want us to address the fundamental issue of democracy in this bill. We need our senators and our congresswomen and men to understand that we should not pass another bill that does not secure our democracy. Because the reality is our nation is run by leaders. We have a representative democracy, and if we cannot choose those representatives, our system doesn't work. The urgency of elections is just as urgent as anything else, because I live in a community where we know that the leadership is not paying attention to the best science. I live in a state and in a region of the country where we are seeing a disproportionate number of the vulnerable succumbing to the issues of COVID-19 because they have been consistently under-resourced, undervalued, and underserved. That can only change if their voices can be heard. And so, yes, we have to protect jobs, but the best way to protect jobs and lives is to make certain that we have leaders who believe in the lives being lived. And that's why I'm on this call to ask you all to call to action those you know and those you lead to make certain that we demand that this ballot initiative be put on the next COVID-19 package and that be a part of the law of the land so that we have safe and fair elections in 2020.
Awesome. Thank you, Stacey. Do you have time for a question or no?
Absolutely.
Okay, question from Debbie. I don't know where Debbie is from, so Debbie is from around the country. There is an effort to shift states to an all-mail ballot. I like the idea it works for urban and urban rural areas. What are your ideas about remote areas like tribal nations? How will voters in remote areas be assured that they will receive their mail?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
As I told you, my computer just gets
It's okay. We are living in a brand new world right now.
And clearly I need to upgrade. So Debbie, I think there are a few answers to this. One is that we have to recognize that a number of tribal locations do not have voting locations that are accessible to everyone, given the way the lines have been drawn. And so we have to have a belt and suspenders response. I believe that we need to push for as much vote by mail as possible. But as I said, I believe that that vote by mail process has to be designed to filter out as many people as possible so that those who need in-person voting can have it. There are only a handful of states that have enough practice with with all mail ballots that we believe it's useful. Oregon has done this for decades and are really good at it. So has Washington State. And so for places that know how to do this and have a history of protecting voters, I think they should continue what they do. For new states we're bringing into the process, we need to have as many people as possible who not only should, but can use absentee ballots so that the places that do need to do in-person voting can do so safely. And that means respecting the needs of tribal communities, respecting the needs of the disabled, of those who have language barriers, of those who are homeless or who are housing insecure. but making certain that writ large, we provide as much opportunity for voting by mail, because if you think about it again, like a sift, we want to sift out as much as possible so we're only left with the essential who have to use in-person voting.
Okay, so and you tell me when you have to go so that I can minimize.
I can do a couple more.
Okay, is Georgia, we have a lot of Georgian students online this morning joining us, probably double dipping with school on one screen and you on the other. Is Georgia looking to move to an automatic registration system? How will this work with military families who PCS in and out frequently? Oh, and then Stacey, you're muted again. Oh, Cheryl, you have Cheryl too.
Hi.
Cheryl's teaching.
Hi, can you ask the question one more time?
Yes. Is Georgia looking to move to an automatic registration system? How will this work with military families who are moving, quite frequently?
Georgia is not moving towards automatic registration. But I will tell you that in states that have implemented automatic registration, there are special provisions made for military families. It's one of the reasons that automatic registration as a national predicate would be a great idea, because then it doesn't matter where you live or where you are, you get registered. But that is why we're pushing for same-day registration as a part of this national plan for natural disasters, because by doing so, we ensure that no matter where you are at the time of the election, if you can prove you live there, you get to vote.
And I think that answers the question about the not getting the mail because of COVID-19 too.
And exactly. So the reason you need some in-person voting is that you do need the ability to go and cast your ballot if something fails with vote by mail. But the solution is not to ignore vote by mail, hoping that COVID-19 has passed by November. We've seen how poorly states, or how difficult it has been for states to respond so far. We can't assume that that hardship won't continue heading into November.
And then Stacey,
one more question.
Yeah, well, actually, I won't ask that. Well, I think we answered most of the questions. So our young women that are on right now are about to call. they're senators all around this country. And so some of them, this might be their first call. And so what advice do you have for them as we transition to that part of our advocacy time?
Number one, be clear with your ask. Make certain that they can't pretend they didn't understand it. What you're asking for is for them to, you want them to vote for the provisions, and you'll get the language that you should have. But thinking that anecdotes make a difference, for a lot of folks, for a lot of political leaders, the anecdotes are things to tell, not necessarily things to hear. You're going to have a short period of time, so you want to get to the point as quickly as possible. If they ask you questions, be thoughtful about it. But remember that you're in the right here. You're a citizen. You have the right to make an ask. You don't want to be angry. You don't want to be righteously indignant. You want to be thoughtful, and you want to be nonpartisan. Because the reality is elections, again, are not partisan. The selection that you make when you vote is partisan, but the election itself should work for everyone. And that's the way you want to talk about it, that no matter who you're speaking on behalf of, every American who is eligible deserves the right to vote in the safest, most accessible way. That's the language. It shouldn't be about ease or simplicity. It's about being safe and accessible, and it's about it being nonpartisan.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking your lunch break with us this afternoon. I truly appreciate it. We are going to transition to the next part of our webinar, where we're about to call and text and put some pieces around social media about it. So we'll tag you and you'll see them very soon. Thank you again so much. Thanks for your support of Ignite.
Absolutely. So proud of you all. Thank you. Get it done.
Have a good afternoon.
Take care.
Awesome. So I am going to hand it over back to Jocelyn, who is gonna get us through the next stages of our amazing advocacy afternoon. I think she's screen sharing. This is hers.
Got to unmute.
What did we all think about that as Jocelyn transitions? There's always a good dose of Stacey.
Yeah, and let us know in the chat box if you have any experience doing digital advocacy. Would love to hear from you. And in the meantime, voila, there we go. So for those of you with Twitter, let's take it on to Twitter to raise awareness about this issue now that we have heard from Stacey Abrams. The language, it's right there, and I wish there's a way for me to copy and paste. Let me see if there's, and also when you're posting it on Twitter, tag your senators, your US senators. Let me see, the beauty of Zoom, how do I do that? Can I use chat? Nope, I can't use chat. Oh, wait. Nope, I can't do that. So let me,
and I know some people are just joining us in because there's going to be a little bit of a shift within our little Zoom this afternoon or morning. I'm really sorry about the capacity issue. We did record this whole piece, and so we will be able to share this out with all of these action steps as well. But if you are just joining us, I'm Sarah Guillermo, Ignite's Chief Program Officer. We just heard from Stacey Abrams on lots of different pieces and strategies to do vote by mail and getting it, very specifically getting it into the next COVID-19 emergency bill. And so that is something that we are going to work on. And we are going to get all of this copy into the chat so that you all can use it. And then since I know there's a couple folks on the phone, I will also read it out loud.
Yes, Sarah, how about this? You can read it out loud while
I will read
into the chat box. There we go.
Okay.
I have 2 laptops now.
Perfect. Thank you. So Jocelyn just popped into the chat box. For folks that are joining us by phone, it says, I join at Ignite National. And then if you are not tweeting at us yet, it's Ignite in capital letters _national, and supporting the Natural Disaster and Emergency Ballot Act 2020. All Americans have the right to exercise their constitutional rights to vote amid this pandemic. Bring the ballot box to the people, and then #ignite the vote.
And if you prefer Facebook, we have a longer version so that you can post it on Facebook as well. And I'll pop it into the chat box.
And Jocelyn, there's a note here that Carrie just asked. She's in a state where there's going to be 2 Democratic senators who will surely vote for this. Is there something else we can do to help the other states?
Even if your senators are definitely, well, first of all, I would never say that they will 100% vote for something. A lot of things
no guarantee,
and you never know. And also, second of all, it's the whole idea, the whole concept of utilizing Twitter and social media is to raise awareness. And so when you have this mass amount of people who are tweeting about the same issue, hopefully it will put pressure on other members, but also that will tell your representatives, your senators, that there are people who are paying attention to this issue and that they need to do more to push for it. It's one thing to just vote for it, but it's also another thing to be an advocate for it. I could just say, yeah, I'll vote for it, but not do anything aside from voting for it, right? So we want to make sure that they recognize that there is this pressure behind it and that there is this movement behind it so that they will actually push for it more aggressively. So there's no harm in tweeting your senators, even though you know that they probably will support it already. Yeah, there's really no harm in doing that.
Yeah, hopefully we'll create a little bit of a Twitter storm in the best way possible.
And I also I just posted the longer version so that you can post it on Facebook.
And for folks that are listening on the phone, it's a little bit longer on Facebook, but it says, I join Ignite National in supporting the Natural Disaster and Emergency Ballot Act, NDEBA 2020. All Americans have the right to exercise their constitutional rights to vote amidst the pandemic without expanding early voting and absentee voting. Vulnerable Americans are going to have to choose between casting a ballot and protecting their health, bring the ballot box to the people by passing NDEBA now, if I can only read letters, hashtag ignite the vote. And we can, Nancy would like to get the PowerPoint slide deck so that she can share with the League of Women Voters New York. Jocelyn.
Yes, and all these are recorded, like Sarah mentioned, and we'll upload it to YouTube as well.
And that'll happen fairly soon. I know that we maxed out quite before the event even started. I think, Jocelyn, should we move to the emails or the?
Yep, so we'll do text banking, which is essentially email. It's the same thing. It's just easier because you can just text sign QBA YUA to 50409, or you could do it through Facebook Messenger, because I know some phones or some carriers would not allow you to sign on to that for free. So if you do it through Facebook Messenger, it's actually free of charge. You just go to ResistBot Facebook, and then you send it through Facebook Messenger. And same thing, again, you text or you message the word sign, SIGN, and then space, Q, B as in boy, A, Y, U, A. And the number, if you're doing it through text banking, it's 50409. And that text message or that Facebook message will actually be converted into an email. So you don't have to type the entire email out. There's already a pre-drafted, pre-populated email that you could just put your sign your name onto it, and it's ready to go. And let me know if, once you try it out, let me know if it works, or if it doesn't, let me know in the chat box. Has anyone used this before? Has anyone done text banking? Yes, Fiona. Awesome. It's very convenient. I learned about this recently, and I've been using this religiously. It's great.
We have some first timers, Jocelyn. This is exciting. My first time was last Monday when we did California Ignite the Capitol.
Yep. So for those who have not done this before, is this working for you? Have you tried texting sign QBAYUA to that number? It works. Awesome. Okay.
Jocelyn, I think a lot of people are on the phone, so they can't chat Boxy as much.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just talk to myself for the.
You talk to Lauren and I.
Okay.
Oh, yay. Rachel said it's working.
Yay.
Perfect.
And also we have our amazing communication team. Even we have Dashani and Kirsten here on the call as well, and we are on, I think, all channels. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, maybe TikTok. I'm not sure, but we'll get there if we're not there already.
Oh, I see the tweets on Twitter.
Perfect, love it. I'm loving it. So tag us, and even on Instagram, tag us as well, and we'll see them, and maybe we'll share them as well.
Okay.
Yep, we're on Twitter, Ignite #national. On Facebook, we're Ignite National. Instagram, we're at Ignite #. Perfect. Find us online. Tag us.
It's too hot right now and they can't. Oh, that's hilarious. Thank you, Rachel. That is amazing.
That is great.
That is the best thing we could be doing right now. Okay, should we do phone call? Are we doing phone calls next?
Yes.
My favorite
Let's
part.
do that. In the meantime, actually, let me get Speakable ready.
Oh, I can talk about Speakable while you get it ready.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we are partnering with our friends at Speakable, and they are doing some digital advocacy and helping us to, they have these awesome action buttons that are gonna help us really elevate our civic engagement work. And so with our phone banking work, we'll actually send you a link and it will get you directly to your particular senator. So you don't have to call the Capitol switchboard, which is my favorite pastime. You'll just get directly connected to both of your senators. And so we're super excited about that and having them as a partner in this work. And so Jocelyn will walk you through some of these amazing phone banking tips.
Yes.
And then we'll do some practicing, right? We'll have
Yeah.
a minute to practice. And then hopefully you can all channel your Stacey's advice of being just very direct about why this is so critical and why this needs to get into the next COVID-19 bill.
Yes. So a few tips if this is your first time doing phone bank. Just know that because of COVID-19, a lot of people might not be in the office, so you might get voicemail when you call. Don't hang up. I know sometimes, like I did it. I have done it before. That's how I know this has happened. I would get so nervous that the moment I hear the voicemail, I would just hang up right away. But no, please don't do that. Leave a message. They will return to the office, and when they do that, they will check their voicemail, and they will still be taking a tally of all the phone calls that they have been receiving. And so it's really important that you leave them a voicemail. This will not silence us. And if by any chance, if there is someone who actually picks up the call, just know that it's gonna be a staff member, not the senator, him or herself, but be nice and be mindful. Some, the staffers, if they're still working at this time, it tells you a lot. They're probably under a lot of stress, and that they're working despite, this coronavirus pandemic typo. So just be respectful of that. And if you're calling the author's office, do not ask them to support the bill, because obviously they are already supporting the bill. Instead, thank them for their support and for their leadership. So we'll go into, and this is the phone bank script. It's a little bit lengthy. You could just shorten it and make it straight to the point. And frankly, you could even make it even shorter and just say, for instance, like, my name is Jocelyn Yao, and I'm a constituent. I joined Ignite National in supporting the Natural Disaster and Emergency Ballot Act 2020. And that's it. Like, you can make it as short as that. But if you want to add in your personal story, if you want to add in why this bill matters to you, then you could go on and say, voting is a constitutional right, and everyone should have the right to vote without having to worry about their health. Or you could, if this is your first time doing it, you feel really, really, really nervous, you could just read off the script. That's fine as well. So do whatever works best for you, and everyone is different, so you don't have to follow the script exactly the way it's written. Just whatever works best for you. And the speakable button, can you put the script in here, please? Okay, I will put
the speakable button a couple times, but I'll just keep linking it in.
Yes, yeah, so the speakable action button, it's several people, we've been posting it, but you can just click on it and it will direct you to your senator's phone numbers, and that way you don't have to Google search, go look for who's my senators, what's their numbers. Everything should be ready to go. So do we have time for practice round, Sarah? It's 9:47.
Yeah, it's 9:47.
Okay. in that case, let's
We'll
see.
put you into small breakout groups. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, I am not the host. Let's see. Let's see if that's possible.
Oh, I said breakout groups and people are disappearing.
Jocelyn, you can take over hosting.
Okay. Let's see if I can do that. Claim host. I am. Where am I? Give me a second, because I have 2 laptops and I'm presenting. I can do both. Give me a second.
Okay.
I'll share.
Jocelyn, should we just we'll just do quick phone calls?
Yeah, let's do quick phone calls because I can do both at the same time.
Yep.
Here, I'll share screen again. Present. There we go. And I will copy and paste this.
And then I'll put the button in again.
Yep. And let us know once you make that call. Let us know if you were able to do so, or if you were able to leave a voicemail, or how was your experience. Let us know. Or let us know which office we should be focusing on. Like, I don't know, maybe you have your senator is on the fence. Well, good to know. We can all call that senator as well and let him or her know that the importance of this bill. So let us know.
Okay.
Yes.
And then folks,
Yeah,
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I saw the message about if I sign through, if you have sent an email, should I also call my reps? Yes, please do so.
I'm calling now too.
Great.
And I'm using that speakable link.
Yes, call individually, mute yourself, please. Lauren is calling, I see that. Sarah is about to call.
Yes, Shania, you're just going to call individually. You've only got 2 people to call. Jocelyn, can you just screen share the speakable link or no? Of just how it works, just so people are not confused, because I think Shania is still confused about how to.
Let's see. Yeah, let me do this. The speakable link. Okay, I have to go to Safari, because it only works on Safari. I have a really, really, really old laptop, so.
Sorry, I just want to make sure everyone can see how great this is.
No, it's totally fine. It's my laptop. Okay, so when you click on the link, it should bring you to this page. Can you all see this page?
Yep.
Okay, and then you click call. Well, it automatically gave me Senator Feinstein and Senator Harris because I live in California and they are my senators. Actually, if that's not, like, for instance, I'm just going to assume that's not my representative. That's not my senator. Okay, I can do this. You know what? They already know I'm in California, so I've tried this too many times. But here's the number automatically right away, 202-224-3841 for Dianne Feinstein, and then Kamala Harris right there. And then I'll pick up my phone. I'll actually call Dianne Feinstein and Kamala Harris. And then once I'm done, I'm like, yes, I called. That's it. It's super simple. Actually, Speakable makes it easier for us. It could be more challenging, but that's what Speakable looks like. And I'll go back to the script. Oops, yep, it is this one. Oops. I'm glad you're having fun, Lauren. Is emailing as good as calling? Yes. Yes, email and calls are the best method. Social media, it's mainly to raise awareness, but for emails and calls, they actually, usually a staff assistant would actually, at the end of the day, they would actually compile all the emails, and they will have like a little tally of like all the issues, and they will also get all the information. Like if, for instance, like if I call, they will have like Jocelyn Yao call today on what's the date, April 8th regarding NDEBA 2020. So yeah, emails and calls are very effective. But social media serves another purpose, which is to raise awareness.
So I just did my 2 phone calls.
Oh, did either Senator Harris or Senator Feinstein's office picked up the phone?
Yeah, they both said that both senators actually, and I don't know if any Californians are on right now, but they said that they aren't, that they haven't released anything about the bill, but they think they're definitely going to share my comments, and will probably be voting for it to be included in the next iteration of COVID-19.
Awesome. That was really helpful.
And then I just marked, I called them, the other pink button. So
Perfect.
Don't forget to do that.
Perfect. Lauren, how was your experience?
So I called both of my senators as well. They didn't pick up. Their offices moved to teleworking because of COVID. So I left a voicemail to Tammy Duckworth, but the other senator, Dick Durbin, he didn't answer. He didn't answer. He also didn't leave like a voicemail box, so I wasn't able to leave a voicemail.
Oh wow, that's new. I've never. Yeah. Okay, good to know. I did not know that there are offices who don't even have voicemail.
Well, Shania said that she just left a voicemail, but it's probably because I was talking to them. I've done my call. You could call back.
Well, in Lauren's case, you know, that's when email comes in really handy because she couldn't even leave a voicemail. So that's, you know, at least she's sending out that email. Do you know a subject from the drop-down menu? So for Rami, for emails, we are actually using, let me go back to that slide. We're using this method because of that issue for Speakable. We were unable to, because the subject line, it's pre-populated, and as you can tell, none of the subject line actually is about voting rights. So we unfortunately can't use that one for now, but we're working on it. But this text banking, it's basically the way to they will convert the text to email, so this works as well. So just text sign SIGN QBA YUA to 50409 and it becomes an email. So Fiona called her senators as well, and she was able to leave messages. Awesome. That's great.
Okay. Jocelyn, I'm going to start to drop the eval link.
Perfect.
This is our last, phone calls were the last one, right?
Yes. I always leave phone calls for the last one. And we have a lot of upcoming events. Oh my goodness, how many? I don't even know how many events we have coming up, but we have really exciting events coming up. Let me copy and paste them on let me copy and paste them. So all the upcoming events, let's see. And also like this code, like this text sign QBAYUA 250409, feel free to share this with your network, with your friends, with your family, post it on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, because it's still the same letter. So anyone could just text this code and sign their name onto the letter, which is very convenient because then you don't have to draft the entire thing by yourself. Or actually, if you want to draft an entire email and personalize it and share why this really truly matters to you and send it to your senators, you could do that as well. In fact, those are probably better because then you're adding your personal story to it.
Perfect.
Great. And again, like look for us on social media. When you're sharing all these information, feel free to tag us as well. And subscribe to our news email as well. That's super important because that's how you'll get to know about all the upcoming events, such as this one. And you can do so on our website, ignitenational.org. What is that? Is it backward or forward slash? Oh, I can never tell, forward, backward. Anyway, one of them, and then join. Forward, backward.
It's okay, Jocelyn, I think they got it.
Okay. I don't know it's forward or backward. Like I always get confused between the two of them.
I don't either, but you all have the link. Anything else?
That's all on my end. Like, and anyone has any questions, let us know how today went. And if you want to stay on, share your experience about your phone banking experience or even the email, text banking or anything like that, let us know. I'll be here for the next 2 minutes or so. Yeah. And thank you all again for joining us.